welcome to my kitchen and the first real episode of the new year, 2012. I really want to make it my goal to start out this year by focusing on prepping and using our food storage and learning more skills in the kitchen for when times may get tough, or right now, for heaven's sakes. We can all save a little money, I think, and maybe learn how to cook on a budget, make menus, stock a pantry, instead of running to the store every night or running to the fast food restaurant, which I don't do because I have a food storage and because I plan ahead. But today we're going to focus on sourdough bread. It has always been one of my goals to start a sourdough and continue to feed it and always have a sourdough on hand. You can use this in place of yeast, and sourdough has been with us for centuries, thousands of years in fact. Anybody who knows me knows that when I want to really delve into something, I do copious amounts of research and I really kind of immerse myself in the subject so that I can learn as much as I possibly can. Now, I've done a little research. Now, you know, we all know we can make sourdough because really it's like collecting yeast from the air. It's collecting the natural yeasts and it's fermenting the lactobacillus bacteria culture, which is the same way that we ferment pickles. When we make fermented pickles, it's the same thing. It's a lactobacillus. It's a lacto-fermentation. So we're basically pulling the good bacteria out of the air and we're using it to our benefit, and we're making all those yeast bacteria happy in there so that they will rise our bread. Well, I just have a little bit I want to read to you before we get started. And we're going to start our sourdough. A lot of people start it with just water and flour and a little bit of sugar or salt. Some people even put a tiny little pinch of yeast in there to get it started. But we're going to start in a little non-conventional way. So what I really wanted to share with you was just this basic overview of what sourdough is. Now, I'm going to read this to you. Sourdough is a dough containing lactobacillus culture. Usually in symbiotic combination with yeasts, it is one of two principal means of biological leavening in bread making. Along with these, use of cultivated forms of yeast or saccharomyces. It is of particular importance in baking rye-based breads where yeast does not produce comparable results. In comparison with yeast-based breads, it produces a distinctively tangy or sour taste, mainly because of the lactic acid produced by the lactobacilli. The actual medium known as the starter or the levain is in essence an ancestral form of a pre-ferment. In English-speaking countries where wheat-based breads predominate, sourdough is no longer the standard method for bread leavening. It was gradually replaced first by the use of barm from beer making, then after the confirmation of germ theory by Louis Pasteur by cultured yeasts. However, some form of natural leaven is still used by many specialty bakeries. Sourdough starter is traditionally made with a small amount of old dough, preferably saved from a prior batch. This is traditionally called the mother dough or chef. In more modern usage, seed sour, first generation starter, or spontaneous seed may be created by storing new dough in a warm place and allowing sufficient time for it to sour. This small amount of old dough starter contains the culture, and its weight is increased by additions of new dough and mixing or kneading, followed by rest or leavening periods. A small amount of resulting dough is then saved to use as a starter sour for the next batch. As long as this starter culture is fed flour and water weekly, it can stay at room temperature indefinitely. Sourdough bread is made by combining the increased amount of starter with another new dough addition, along with any other desired ingredients to make the final dough. The starter comprises about 20 to 25% of the final dough, though particular formulas vary, and that ratio may be higher. The final dough may be divided and shaped, then allowed to rise, followed by baking. It is not uncommon for a baker's starter dough to have years of history from many hundreds of previous batches. As a result, each bakery's sourdough has a distinct taste. The combination of starter process, refreshment ratios and rest times, culture and air temperature, humidity and elevation also makes each batch of sourdough different. Now, many of us are familiar with the San Francisco sourdough, and a lot of people say that that is the most unique sourdough because for some reason all of the conditions in San Francisco Rick is trying to get a cat off of his shoulder, who was on top of my refrigerator. That particular sourdough, all the conditions in San Francisco are absolutely perfect to make just that kind. So wherever you are in the country, your sourdough may taste just a little bit different because the natural yeasts that are going to be collected from the air are going to cause your sourdough to have its own distinct flavor. So, enough of my windbaggedness, and we will move on to how we're going to start this dough. Now, I'm going to make a separate video and upload it each day that we make a new edition until we finally end our sourdough making and we make bread with it. So, here we go.
I was going to say that's why San Francisco has its own unique sourdough flavor.
That is why, yes, absolutely. The first thing you want to start with is impeccably clean utensils and tools, etc. I like to keep my sourdough in a 2-quart jar, and this is simply because sourdough has a tendency to, it can have a tendency to become very unruly, and depending on how much you're making, you don't want it to overdo itself. So I like to use a 2-quart jar just to make sure I have enough room. Now, some of you may recognize this. This is what many of us use when sprouting seeds. And because I don't want fruit flies to decide that they want to apprehend my sourdough, because fruit flies are really, they're really attracted to the gases that the sourdough produces, because they're methane gases, and that's what flies like. So, the reason that the flies are going to like this is because we're going to use pineapple juice. Now, I've had this pineapple juice sitting in my refrigerator since before Christmas. Now, yeah, it has a little bit of fermentation going on in there. Anyway, I'm also going to start, and you have your choice here. You can start with white flour, whole wheat flour. I'm going to start with a white wheat flour. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I know for a fact that starting your sourdough with a whole wheat flour makes a much happier sourdough. So we're going to start off with 1 cup of whole wheat flour. This is white wheat flour.
Don't like sourdough?
She says, I don't know that, Daddy. Okay, and we're going to start off with 1 cup of this very nasty pineapple juice. Ooh, I wouldn't want to drink that, but I'm going to save it because it'll make my sourdough really happy. And you can start off with fresh pineapple juice, but I had that in the fridge and I'm not going to let it go to waste. My family won't drink it, but my sourdough will really benefit from it. Mix this up really well. And it's a little thick, so I'm just going to add maybe 2 more tablespoons. You want it more like a pancake batter. And again, the sourdough is not an exact science. Our measurements are going to help us estimate where we need to start, but they may not be the end result that we end up using. That is more like what I want. Okay, now we'll get our jar. I'm also going to get a canning funnel because I don't trust myself. And you don't want to use a rubber spatula. You want to use a clean stainless steel spoon. And I'm going to try and get as much out of there as I can. Okay. That's it for day 1. Now, let's get Rick a shot of that. I'm going to put this lid on it, and that's simply because I don't want the flies to get to it. And this is not wanting to fit on here. I wonder why. Let's see. Easy fix. What did I just do? Oh. This lid does not want to go onto my jar, so I pop the screen out. I put it inside my ring. Now it fits, just like it wants to. Okay, now I'm going to put it right here on my stove, because my stove is warm because I just made some fish in my oven. And we're just going to leave it there for 48 hours. In 2 days we're going to come back and I'm going to show you what that looks like and what we're going to do to it next. So, get your stuff ready, start your sourdough, and sourdough along with me. I think this is going to be so much fun, and we're going to learn, and in the end, we're going to have a product that we can share, because every day you're going to have to take some out after it's done, and then once a week you're going to have to take some out to feed it, and I hate throwing things away, so find a sourdough friend and share your sourdough with them so you don't have to dump it down the drain. So, that's all I have for today. Get your stuff, make your sourdough, and sourdough along with me. And I think we're going to have great fun. So, try it. I hope you love it. And until next time, I'll see ya.